trapped upside down and underwater, and how to get home if you're hurt on holiday. You know, police sniffer dogs are very special animals. They perform the often dangerous tasks of searching for drugs or explosives or firearms. Their training starts when they're puppies and ends with an intensive 8-week course, and only then are they considered ready to do the job. So crucial is the close relationship between dog and handler that they live together as well as work together. The dog becomes a family pet. That partnership was to prove a real lifesaver in our next story, when a drug sniffer dog and his handler ended up with much more than they bargained for in what they thought was going to be a routine search. Pup's an 18-month-old Springer Spaniel who spent nearly all his life with his handler, Jeff Arnold. They're together every day. It's a working relationship which never stops.
He's part of the family. He comes home and relaxes like I do when we finish work. He plays with the children, lives in the house as I do, treats it as his own, and then we go to work together. And he does his duty the same as I would do. We become a team.
Pup is played by a specially trained dog, which was not hurt or distressed at any time during this reconstruction. Jeff and the other plainclothes policemen are played by actors. It all began when the team were called out on a routine drug search in North London.
I've had a look around upstairs. I can't see anything obvious, but check in that bedroom to start off with.
The normal routine would be to call in a drugs dog to go on any search with you. And the dog's the most important feature. He will find things by smell that we would easily miss.
Go on then, Pup. Find it. Where is it? Come on, boy. Come on.
We've got to make sure the dog's continually working all the time. We try and make him sort of suspicious or want to hunt, basically. So it's softly just encourage him, like, good boy, what's he got there? What's this? What's he got? So he doesn't flag or get bored until he's covered all parts of the area that he's searching.
No, I don't think he's here.
We finished the bedroom, decided there was nothing there. I had another quick word with my colleagues who called me, and they wanted me then to go up into the loft.
There's a light switch up on your left.
The handler always checks first that it's a safe environment for the dog to work in. There wasn't much in the way of fiberglass, and there was no sort of mouse traps or poison or anything about. No bare wires or anything, so I thought it was a safe environment for the dog to work in.
How's it look up there?
Yeah, it seems all right.
I went back down, got the pup, carried him up the ladder, put him in search in the loft.
That's it. Come on. Seek it. Find it. Where is it?
Everything was going as normal. I kept my eye on him. There didn't seem to be any problems, and the dog was working well.
Where is it?
I will watch the handler watching his dog. I can tell by his face whether or not the dog's on the scent of something.
That's it. That's it. Over there.
He was running around searching, and his tail was going, as normally. He was quite excited. He eventually spun round somewhere near me and buried his head in some of the junk that was up in the loft. And his tail was going, and it just clipped a lampshade.
His face then turned to, I can describe it as abject horror.
Just like that, it went black, and I could feel pain all over my back.
Hey! Get out! Get out! It's a wasp nest! Get out! It's a wasp nest!
In fact, Pup had disturbed around 2,000 wasps, which were now swarming round the loft.
He's still up there!
Jeff! Get out of there!
I virtually fell down the ladder trying to get out in my haste. I mean, I was in agony by that time, all over my face, the head, my back, my arms, were all as though they were being burnt by thousands of cigarette ends. And I put my hand across the top of my head to take them off, and I just had a handful of wasps.
It was like something out of a horror cartoon.
It was as if somebody had hung a black curtain out of it. There was a bowl of darkness.
I could hear Pup whimpering up there. I knew he was in pain. You could tell by the way he was whimpering, and you can hear him running around on the loft floor. I shouted to Pup, hoping that he'd come down after me, but from my experience with dogs, I know that they won't jump back out of a loft space.
Come on, boy!
I knew the dog had to come out of the loft, and I was trying to think of some way to get the dog out. But really, in my heart of hearts, I knew there was only one way, and that was me who's going to have to run back up the ladder and get him out.
I couldn't have done it. I just could not have forced myself to have re-entered the loft.
The initial time I ran in, I didn't go in far enough, and I was still in the cloud. The pain from the delicate parts of the skin under the arm was excruciating, and in the end I just had to come back down the ladder.
It's hopeless.
I knew it was a matter of time. I just had to take a deep breath, run back up there and get him out. From the state I was in, it'd have to be my last attempt. I didn't think I'd be able to do it twice. He's not just a dog, he's part of the family. Like any part of my family, if they were stuck in a situation like that, I would do what I could to get them out. I knew it was going to be a great deal of pain, and I didn't really relish the thought of running back in there. I shouted to the blokes that he won't have much time. I asked someone to fill the bath of water so we could put him straight into it. And as I did get clearer of the loft, I could see better, and I could see the dog running around, and he was just like a moving coat of wasps. You couldn't see his fur for wasps, so I knew he must be in terrible pain. And then he just turned towards me and came running in my direction. I just grabbed him.
It was just one big black mass of crawling wasps. You could look at his fur and it was wriggling as if it was alive. At first you couldn't even think what it was all about until you started to backbrush the fur and look deep into his fur, and you could see the whole area of his back and side of us full of wasps.
My fear was at the time that the pup wasn't going to make it.
How is he? How is he? Can he be all right?
Fine, Jeff.
I personally thought the dog was going to die. It didn't respond to anything. All I could think of saying was, okay, I think he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. You know? And I didn't believe that, but that's what I thought he needed to hear.
Soon get you out of here, mate.
Make it blues and two, Sarge!
I shouted to the sergeant that we needed a response car or an area car equipped with blue lights and two-tones. It is unusual. It wouldn't normally be done. We felt the dog was dying. The dog's treated as a police officer, so it was one of us.
Good dog. Good boy. Good boy. You're all right.
The sergeant from the unit I was with was carrying him out in a blanket, and I looked at him as he went past me, and he looked really bad at that stage, and you just naturally blame yourself. You just think there should have been something else I could have done. I should have acted quicker, and I was really worried then that he wasn't going to make it. I felt I had the lump in my throat, and I thought we was going to lose the pup.
Come on, Jeff. There's nothing we can do here. Let's get you to hospital.
And the blokes were organising everything. They were just trying to get the dog to the vet as soon as they could. We all knew that, you know, he didn't have long.
If you could get his temperature, Helen, just try and be as quick as we can. When I actually saw the dog, I didn't think he was going to make it. He was not breathing very well at all.
Pup was stung more than 400 times and had gone into anaphylactic shock, which, just as in humans, is a life-threatening allergic reaction which can only be treated with adrenaline.
Unless you give medication to stop that process, it is fatal within a matter of minutes. There were live wasps stuck in his fur, and when you lifted up his ear flap, live wasps flying out of his ear and down his nose. His mouth.
Jeff had also been stung more than 100 times.
Hey, do you want to come in?
Despite this, he left the hospital and got back to Pup within an hour.
The dog got very excited when he see me. They were trying to work on him at the time. But then Alison White, the vet, told me I had to leave because the dog was getting too restless because I was there. So it was now I had the case of going home and telling the family that the condition the dog was in, seriously ill in the vets, we wouldn't really know whether he was going to make it or not till the next day.
Really, I thought we were in trouble. I didn't think he was going to last.
Pup was attached to an adrenaline drip. It was touch and go, but he did make it through the night, and the following morning they began surgery.
Okay, we've got it, I think. Good. Sure, you all right? Yeah. When I looked down the ear, there was part of a dead wasp sitting adjacent to the eardrum. He was actually very lucky in that the eardrum was intact. It was just a case of trying to get the wasps and the stings out without causing any further damage, and then cleaning away the blood. Got it. There we are. Right next to his eardrum.
I'd been worried all night that he wasn't going to make it. Well, he suffered a lot. he suffered a lot more than I did, I think. He was in quite a lot worse state than I was. When I got there and he was all right and the old tail was wagging when he seed me, I was really happy, overjoyed.
4 months later, Pups made a good recovery and is even back at work.
I felt fantastic when I realised he was going to make it. We're a lot closer now, and I shall be a bit more protective, I should think, of him in the future.
When you're planning a holiday, it's easy to think your only concern is working out where to go and what to do. But what you should also really think about is what you'd do if something went wrong abroad and you had to be brought back to the UK. We tend to think, oh, it'll never happen to me, but the fact is that last year more than 6,000 people had to be flown home after disaster struck. You can fill in one of these E111 forms. Now, this entitles you to free or reduced emergency medical costs anywhere within the European Economic Area, but it doesn't cover the cost of being repatriated to the UK. So if, for example, you broke your leg in France and you weren't properly insured, it would cost you around £2,000 to get home. We've been following the work of one company whose job it is to bring back people who've been injured abroad. And believe you me, it's much more complicated than going to your local hospital by ambulance. This is the control room of Europe Assistance in Croydon. Every week they get hundreds of phone calls requesting help. Today they're bringing back a 70-year-old lady from France.
She was in a road traffic accident on the 2nd of October with 2 friends, and she sustained chest injuries, a broken hip, fractured wrist, so she's got 1 wrist in plaster. She's had chest drains in, but they're now out. She's still on oxygen, she's still got a drip up, and still needs a lot of care and some further treatment when she gets back.
The company employs 62 doctors and 43 full-time nurses. Nurses like Bridget can expect to help out on more than 200 repatriations a year.
We tend to repatriate people as soon as they're fit to be repatriated. In a couple of weeks' time, she would still need a stretcher. It's not as if she'd progress and be able to come back seated. And it's her wishes as well.
Daphne's repatriation should be straightforward, but it's not always the case.
There's people who travel to Europe and they take their E111 form and they believe that that looks after them medically while they're abroad, and it will also bring them home, which it doesn't. It covers either a proportion or a total of the medical expenses if they're in a state hospital. But in a lot of countries, they will end up in a private clinic where the E111 isn't accepted. Daphne's got osteoporosis, so she has very soft bones, so you've got to be that much more careful.
45 minutes later, and they're on the ground at Le Touquet in France. It's straight off to hospital, where Dr. Angel from Europe Assistance is given Daphne's records by the French doctor.
I was sitting in the back of the car, happily looking at the French countryside, and quite suddenly I saw this car coming head on. There was a tremendous crash. Everything then becomes very quiet.
Ignition and put some pins in.
We arrived on the 30th of September, and the accident happened on the 2nd of October. My holiday has finished here.
Daphne's been in the hospital for 15 days, and it's only now that her condition is stable enough for her to be moved. 90 minutes after the team arrive, they're ready to take her home.
The main problem she was going to be aware of were maybe pain with more movement, take-off, landing, being loaded and unloaded.
Stretches where the wheels fold away under.
We had to work out with her the best way of what was going to cause her least pain.
Next, the 20-minute drive to the airport. They have to be gentle.
I'm a nervous wreck at the moment.
We've already asked them to go slow.
One of the problems is actually transferring the patient across from the bed to the ambulance stretcher that they're going to travel on. And with someone like Daphne, who was awake and is pretty sore and battered, often they know best how they can best be moved. Initially, we were going to do a straight body lift with our arms underneath her, but that was going to cause too much pain. So we then did what's called a sheet lift and used the sheet she was lying on to scoop across on that.
Without an E111 form and proper insurance, Daphne's medical and repatriation costs would have been more than £11,000. If she'd only had the E111, she'd still have to pay £6,000. But as she had both, it didn't cost Daphne anything for her medical expenses or for her flight home on this specially converted executive jet.
The equipment of our own that we've brought is a complete intensive care unit, and what we're monitoring with Daphne is a ProPack, the unit on the top, which monitors ECG, which is a heart recording, blood pressure from the cuff on her arm that will do a reading as frequently as we want. Sometimes we find we're doing monitoring that the hospital hasn't done previously. We actually want to pick up problems before they arise. Oh yeah, coast. Any second now. That's it. Oh, very good. That was good, wasn't it? And that's just stopping. Oh, yeah. 2:10.
Daphne's now making a good recovery in hospital and is happy to be nearer her family and friends at home.
From our point of view, the journey went very well. She was out of hospital for 3 hours from bed to bed. It's the actual out-of-hospital time rather than the flying time that we look at. No medical problems, and monitored her throughout, and she was nice and stable.
Thank you so
And
much.
we'll give you a ring in a couple of days and see how
that'd
you
be
do.
nice, thank you.
The Department of Health produces this useful booklet called Health Advice for Travellers. You can get it free at any post office. It also contains an E111 form that you can fill in and get stamped and signed at the post office before you go. But although it covers some expenses, it by no means replaces proper travel insurance.
In this series of 999 Lifesavers, the emphasis has very much been on what you can do in an emergency before the emergency services arrive. Now, what if you came across somebody who cut themselves and was bleeding profusely? Would you know what to do? The sight of blood can be very distressing for all of us, making it hard to stay calm, especially if it's somebody that we know. We've reconstructed this next scene, frankly, to show you just how much blood there could be in this situation. We've used fake blood, of course, but at least it'll give you some idea of what you might have to cope with.
Come on!
Danny, Paul, careful! Sorry.
Ah!
What?
Mum! His leg!
Danny, what's happened?
My leg!
Let me see. Oh, no!
It must have been this bottle!
Oh, no!
No, it looks like a really deep cut! What are we gonna do?
I don't know. We've got to do something, though, quickly. Can you help us, please?
Look, if he's got a deep cut in an artery, he can bleed to death in minutes, so you've got to try to stem the loss of blood as quickly as possible. But make sure that somebody calls an ambulance now.
Paul, go and telephone an ambulance now. Hurry!
First, try to stay calm. Lay him down immediately.
Come on, Danny, we're going to try and get you down.
This is in case the blood loss makes him faint. He might fall and hurt himself more. Next, you need to get that bleeding under control as quickly as you can.
What do I do?
You need to remove any clothing from around the cut. While you're doing this, keep reassuring him that everything will be fine. He's probably very shocked.
It's all right, Danny. It's all right. We're getting help. It's all right. It's not as bad as it looks. Oh, there's Paul. He's getting help.
What? It's been an accident! OK, mate.
I think I can feel a piece of glass in the wound. Should I take it out?
No, don't do that. It might be stemming the flow, so removing it could make things worse. You need to put pressure on the wound. Your hand will do, but a clean pad of cloth will be better. Improvise if you have to.
Paul! The hamper! Napkins in there! Get some quick! Hurry! What are you doing?
Making something to tie on his leg.
No, don't do that. Never use a tourniquet. They can cause even more damage.
But we've got to do something.
That's right. I mean, what should we do?
OK, try to lift his injured leg up in the air.
Paul, get round. Help me lift this up.
By lifting it up, you're reducing the blood supply to the injury, which will help to stem the bleeding.
Keep it up.
You need to keep it there for at least 10 minutes, or until the blood starts to clot on its own. But you must keep pressure on that wound.
Can you get your hand on there?
Yeah, all right.
And keep reassuring him all the time.
Danny. It's all right. They're on their way now. It won't be long.
Now, apply a dressing. You'll need something clean but not fluffy. The fibres will just get stuck in the wound. The scarf's a good idea, but be careful that you don't tie it too tightly, as this would cut off the blood supply to the rest of the leg, causing other problems. Be prepared to put on more dressings if the blood starts seeping through, and keep pressing hard on the wound.
Get your hand on there.
Right, yeah.
Keep the pressure on.
Right.
Okay. All right, Danny. Okay.
When people lose a lot of blood, they can go into shock. They go quiet, lose interest in what's going on around them, so you must keep checking that he's okay.
But how? What should I do?
Check that he's breathing and feel for a pulse to see that his heart's still beating. Can you feel his breath on your cheek?
Yeah.
You need to keep doing this every 2 minutes. Make sure you keep him warm and reassure him all the time
Right.
until the emergency services arrive.
It's here.
Although we've shown you what it might be like, nothing can replace the value of a first aid course and some real experience. So do go on a course if you don't think you'd know what to do. There's information on coping with blood loss in our Lifesaver guide. If you want a copy, send a cheque for £2.50, made payable to BBC Education, to 999 Lifesaver Guide 3, PO Box 7, London W5 2GQ. And we'll give you that address again later in the programme.
There are more than 6,000 car accidents every day in the UK. Now, in most cases, when an accident happens, there's usually somebody on hand to help out or call the emergency services. But in our next story, Michelle Rasdell from Cambridgeshire had only one person to rely on, herself. The story begins in April 1993 when Michelle and her husband Mark were watching TV, not realising just how significant it would be. In our reconstruction, both Michelle and Mark are played by actors.
Upside down in the river, a father's fight to free his son.
Well, we decided to go to bed early and we had a television in the bedroom. We just go and sit and watch 999 for that particular evening.
Just yards from the road, the river walk.
I remember a father and his son driving along at night in heavy rain, and they went off the road into a river.
Bruce and Gary had landed upside down in the water. Their seatbelts had locked solid. They were trapped.
You see these things happening, but they're always to other people. And I remember thinking, oh, if that ever happened to me, I would just panic.
On a rainy afternoon in September 2 years later, Michelle set off to do some shopping. As she said goodbye to her children, she had no idea what was about to happen.
I left the children at home, and then later it really dawned on me how thankful I was that they weren't with me. The road to Ely was about 6 miles away from where I was driving. It's a very twisty, turning sort of road. Along the side of the road are these water dikes. So I went around the first bend, and as I started to go around the second bend, I turned the wheel and the car just went the other way. It was like it just glided across the surface of the road, and the next thing I knew, it was just going in a straight line off the road, over the edge of the grass towards the dike.
Just like the car in the film, Michelle's vehicle somersaulted into the water.
The next thing I knew, the car was upside down and completely submerged. It was completely black and mud and silt. You could just feel it everywhere. I hadn't a clue where I was. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't even see outlines of the doors or the windows or anything. I managed to find the seatbelt quite quickly. Put my hand across and it clicked and the seatbelt came straight off. And I remember feeling around everywhere, trying to feel what felt like a door handle. And then at one moment I grasped hold of something and I thought, that's it, I've got the handle. And it was actually one of the pedals. And I let go of the pedal and floated around a bit more, and then I found the passenger handle. I remember just thinking, that's it, I've got it, there's no problem, here's the handle, we can get out. And then the door just wouldn't open. The handle moved and the door didn't, it just stood there.
Struggling to hold her breath, time was running out.
That's when I realised this is actually it. And I had this very loud voice almost screaming in my head. It was my voice, but it was like arguing with me. And it was sort of saying, it just kept saying, you are actually going to die here in this car. And I just thought, well, what's the problem? It was nice and warm, and I began to think, it's actually not too cold in here.
Michelle's mind started drifting. She was losing consciousness.
I just kept seeing this vision of my husband and my 2 boys. And I kept seeing Sammy's face. All I could see was just his smiley face and his dimples, and that, I think that woke me up from where I was sleeping. Once I started thinking about the boys, I had this really weird flashback. I remembered very clearly sitting in bed years ago watching 999, and it was absolutely crystal clear. I was seeing Mark and I sat in bed watching the programme as though I was above it, and I had this vision of the one that I'd seen about the car.
It had landed upside down in the water.
I remember after the film there was sort of like key points came up on the screen, things to remember.
Plunging into deep, dark water is a frightening experience. But if it happens to you, you need to try and stay as calm as possible and get ready to abandon your vehicle.
And all I could remember from the points was this one point.
Until the water pressure is the same on the inside as the outside, it'll be very difficult to open the doors.
The door won't open until the water pressure's the same each side. I thought, that's it, there must be an air pocket somewhere. And I just held on to the handle.
Michelle was right. There was an air pocket, and it was slowly filling up.
I waited and tried it, and then one of the pushes, I pulled the handle, and it just opened very slowly. It just slid open. As soon as the door started to open, this huge shaft of light came down. The door opened, and this light came in. I just thought, that's it. That is the direction I've got to swim in. When I actually came up to the surface, it had stopped raining. It wasn't actually raining anymore.
Michelle managed to hang on till help arrived. She was uninjured, but one thought still haunts her.
If I'd had the boys with me, they wouldn't have stood a chance at all. At all. That's the difficult thing. I think it makes you realise how quick things can change. From now on, every day is a day on its own, and it's a day that, if it hadn't have been for the information I somehow retained, it would have been a day we just didn't have anymore.
To get a copy of the Lifesaver Guide, send a cheque for £2.50, made payable to BBC Education, to 999 Lifesaver Guide 3, PO Box 7, London W5 2GQ.
"999 Young Lifesavers" explains what to do in emergency situations to keep yourself and other people safe. A BBC children's book. It's available now from bookshops.
Tales of true life rescues now on BBC One with 999 Lifesavers.
Tonight, lost at sea, alone for 17 hours. The Lifesavers in leather on the streets of Bristol. And at a party